Hello?
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. It's been a minute.
It has been a while.
How have you been?
Uh, Good. Busy, but good. Yeah, being, um, I have staff in 3 different offices, so it's a lot of running around, but yeah, no, it's good. How about you?
Good, good. I'm glad to hear that you're doing well, and I'm interested in hearing more about that, obviously. Thank you so much for deciding to meet with me today. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
that's my pleasure. Do you have to tell me a little more about this project you're working on and about Bluebird?
Yeah, I started Bluebird when I was at the year after Niagara, like after I left Niagara, it was in 2021. Because I found we didn't have a hub for environmental people of resources. Everywhere is
Mhm,
so particular with their
mhm,
content, like they're just birding or they're just for this conservation area or whatever. And I really wanted to make a hub for everybody, especially for school
mhm.
and resources like that. So Bluebird was born. And so this is one of those things that I do to provide like a profile for either potential students or students that are currently in school and maybe don't know what they want to do yet of different career paths. So I've had people from conservation authorities or consulting or nonprofits or education all over the place because I wish I
Mhm.
had that. So that's what these chats are for. And I thought that you'd be a really great fit for it because I knew you and I knew that the work that you did was very interesting. But also you helped to round out for the types
Mhm.
of people that we've had on here before. So I appreciate you deciding to meet with me today. And I think it might be best if we start with a little bit about you and your path to get where you are today, career-wise.
Yeah. So in terms of education, I think that's probably where I should start. I thought I was going to be an environmental lawyer. So I went to York University and did the environmental studies program there, thinking that that would set me up to roll into law school there at York. My plan was to go to Osgoode. Um, in my third year, I realized I didn't want to be a lawyer and had to cram all my science into the last year and a half of my degree because I wanted to. I remember the day I was reading a story about the Three Sisters Dam project from a legal perspective in one of my environmental law classes. And I thought, I can't do this. I can't fight for things I've never seen. I can't. Um, I felt like I needed to literally get my hands dirty. And so that's when I realized I wanted to be a restoration ecologist. And so I crammed, like I said, crammed all the science into the last year and a half of my degree, gave up the law school dream, graduated from York University in 1997, and then did 1 year at Niagara College in the ecosystem restoration postgrad program because I felt like I had all the theory and all the science, but I didn't have the literal hands on, get my hands dirty part. So I went to Niagara for a year. Instead of doing a master's or instead of going to law school, I did that program and graduated in 98 from there. But while I was in the program, my year long project was the restoration of Baden Powell Park in Niagara Falls. And we wrote it up as a funding proposal for the then Action 21 program, which later morphed into Eco Action, which is a federal funding program. And we submitted it at the end of that school year and we received full funding. So that was my job for 2 years after I graduated, was actually implementing the restoration plan I wrote as a student. That's where I got my start. Um, Yeah, I also started a consulting business at that time. a lot of the naturalist clubs and environmental organizations in Niagara, which is where I live, had really great project ideas, but they had no staff. So I went to all of them and I said, I'll help you write your funding proposals. If you get the funding, I'd like to coordinate the projects for you. I'd like to work for you. So I'll write my salary into the proposals. And that's what I did. And I did that for 3.5 years. And I really loved it. One of the contracts I was working on was for the Niagara Restoration Council. And I was working out of the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority office, which is where their desk was at the time. Working there, I got exposed to conservation authorities and what they do. And when they wrote the restoration plan and the strategy for 12 Mile Creek, they needed a restoration ecologist to implement it. And they were building a new restoration department. And so I happened to be sitting there and it made these connections. So they came to me and said, would you come and work for the Conservation Authority full time? And I said, well, I really love what I'm doing. Like, I'm working for all of these groups. I'm my own boss, which I loved. And they said, what if we gave you 12 Mile Creek? Well, anyone who knows Niagara knows 12 Mile Creek is the only remaining cold water stream, has a self-sustaining brook trout population. It's literally every restoration ecologist's dream. And so they made me an offer I couldn't refuse. So I went to work for the Conservation Authority in 2001. And I was there for 17 years. And I loved every minute of it. So we built a restoration department. When I left the CA, I believe there were 7 of us working in that department. I got to work with private landowners on their own properties, doing a whole host of restoration projects, from tree planting projects to creek enhancements to wetland creation for flood control, like across the board. And I loved that job because I got to do everything from initial landowner contact right through to hiring contractors and implementing the projects and follow-up monitoring. So that was my dream job. And I did it for a really long time with a team that I loved. During that time, I was on loan to the Niagara Parks Commission as well for a few years as their parks naturalist. So that was really cool work because that's a very special place. So I worked for the CA, but they shared me. So that was a neat opportunity. And then in 2018, I left, the end of 2017, I left the CA and I came to Ministry of Natural Resources as a partnership specialist. Another really cool job that was outward facing. And I felt like I had a lot to offer at that point in my career because I had this body of work to draw from. So I did that for a couple of years and then I moved into management. And now I sit behind a desk. But I have a great team that's out in the field. And again, I feel like I have something to offer them because I've been there, done that. And that's how I ended up here in a district supervisor role with the Ministry of Natural Resources.
That's quite the journey. I of course, because I went to Niagara and that's how we met, I knew about Baden-Powell, which is still one of the coolest places I've ever been because it has a little bit of every type of ecosystem in it.
Yeah, that was the restoration plan, to use it for education. Yeah.
Yeah, and you did.
Yeah, we still do.
You still teach at Niagara?
So yeah, that's the only thing I didn't mention, I think, is that I got this great opportunity. When I left the Conservation Authority and came to MNR, I thought about teaching full time. And what's interesting is you can't teach full time at a college in Ontario unless you have a master's. So the only time in my entire career I needed more education than I got from Niagara College was when I wanted to work for Niagara College.
Ironically.
Ironically. So that wasn't an option for me, but they said, we'd really like you to come and teach part-time. So I taught the restoration ecology class for 5 years. With recent cuts to international students, that program has gotten other programs at the college got smaller, and it just means that there isn't as much work for part-timers. So I'm not teaching right now, but I hope to again in the future. I loved being with the students. Um,
It
and
showed.
well, you get to a point in your career where you feel like I need to tell them because they need to know this
Yeah.
because they can't make the same mistakes I made, right? And you want to share it with young professionals. And my outlet for that was the college, and I loved every minute of that. Mhm.
Well, it definitely showed. I feel like because I think we had you in the fall. You were one of the
Mhm.
first people that we interacted with, and I think like Baden we went to in September. Like it was quite early when we got to go there, and I think that that was very impactful for all of us when we went because that was such a great introduction of like, okay, this is why we're here, is to do
Yeah.
this kind of thing or to research these kinds of places and problem solve. Being an environmental scientist at any type of level, you're a problem solver. And the problem is different every single time. Even if it's the same overarching problem, every place is different, and even different parts of the same river are different,
Yeah.
which is what I think is so great about this type of field.
100%. And I feel like I tell the students that too, right? I'm like, you have to love puzzles. And
Yeah.
you have to have a little bit of an ego to think that you can actually make a difference here, but be humble enough to know that Mother Nature is going to do what she's going to do, and you're going to get it wrong more than you get it right, but it'll all be okay.
Yeah. That's the very comforting thing that I realized a few years into this was uh it will correct itself. If we didn't help it to do it, it will do it anyways. So all you can really hope for is that you're helping it do what it was already going to do
Yeah,
anyway.
that's that whole concept of putting it restoration is about putting the ecosystem back on its trajectory,
Yeah.
whatever that ends up being, and helping it along, right? And I know I teach that, and you know I teach that, but it becomes real when you're out in the field and you see, okay, I did this, but then it did that. So
Yeah.
what's the connection? Really cool to be like, this is my 27th year doing this or whatever. I can't even do the math anymore. But to go back to sites that I did, 20 years ago and be like, almost like we knew what we were doing, but not quite because it did this.
Yeah. I think that's what's so great about conferences as well,
Yeah.
like going to Source to Stream or Natural Channels, things like that, because people in our field are very willing to talk about projects that we've worked on, and especially if it'll help other people. And I think that those are always so great. And I always try to push those onto young professionals that I meet. I'm like, go, it's only $40, please, because you never know, A, who you're going to meet. Like that could be where you meet the person that you're going to work for in the future or work with, but also just the knowledge that you get from seeing other people's mistakes and successes is invaluable later on.
Yeah, you'll remember that in that course that I teach at Niagara, I use a lot of my own projects
Yeah.
as the examples, and I'm very honest about what did not go right. Because I do think you learn more from your failures. Like, people tell you that early in your career, but you don't realize, wow, that's true. And it's not just the actual physical work you're doing and manipulating the ecosystem. It's even like the mistakes you make with landowners, the mistakes you make with partners, the mistakes you make with funders, the mistakes you make with your boss. Like I
Yeah.
really tell all those stories in the course, and that's legitimately all of those are true. And I tell it because I feel like you can all learn from it. So yeah, and go
For
again.
sure.
Network is what I say to all young folks starting out in this.
And people say that and you don't really get it until you're in it. Like, oh, it's about who you know, which it is for the most part. Like there have been positions that I have been in that weren't even posted just because I knew that person. I knew they were looking for somebody and then they reached out and they were like, "Hey, you could be that somebody." And I was like, "You're right, I could." And then I
Mhm.
was.
Mhm.
So a lot of networking is really required in this field. It's really not as linear as maybe some other things, like other career
Mhm.
choices, like accounting or something, where you just apply and get it because you know it. And everybody's a little different too. Like I feel like having worked for a couple of different consulting firms, all three of them were so different from each other. And it's because of the people. Everybody on your team will make or break a project. And when you have an awesome team, then things work really, really well. Um,
Yep.
so yeah, definitely lots of different moving parts when it comes to doing environmental projects. Even if you're only working on one, you're not really, because you're going to influence other parts, even if you're not directly involved in them. And it takes a team every single time.
Yeah.
But thank you for that overview of your incredible career so far.
It's
It's
been a
quite
wild ride.
that's what everybody says. I just had Ian a couple of weeks ago
Martin?
as the guest for this. Yeah, Ian Smith.
Oh, Ian Smith. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Other one. Now he's back in school doing a
I
PR.
know the man won't quit. He's in his 60s and he's like, "Oh, I still have 70 years to do four other career paths. Why not?"
It's
So
wild.
he was really awesome to have as one of these chats as well because his career path was very non-linear. And I feel like out of everybody, yours is the most linear, which says something because none of them are linear. But
Mhm.
I think he started out in math, he said,
Mhm.
or engineering or something, and then snaked
Yeah.
his way into fluvial geomorphology eventually, and now he's doing something in biology for his PhD,
Mhm.
which is another left field shift to somewhere else. So you never stop learning, which is great.
No, and I don't feel like I'm done. I'm 51, so I've got some years left here. But there's so much I want to do still, which is a cool place to be.
And I look forward to seeing what else you get up to, especially now that you're in a management role. I'm curious to know a little bit more about that. You said you work in partnerships, or was that the position before your current one?
Yeah. So when I first came to MNR, I was hired as the partnership specialist, which was an external facing position that worked with, you know, NGOs, other government agencies that were out on the landscape doing natural resource management projects. And it was a perfect fit for me coming from NPCA. That job changed under our current government to be internal facing. So we weren't working with external partners anymore, but working internally within the ministry with different divisions with a slightly different focus. And I ended up doing a lot of issues management. So I think maybe because of my broad experience prior to coming here, I was called upon to do some of the, yeah, like issues would come in, we'd get inquiries from the public. And I was stick handling a lot of that for this Elmer, or well, back then it was Guelph District. And then an opportunity came up for me at the very start of COVID to go and work for corporate MNR. So, working out of the deputy minister's office remotely. They had a secretariat had formed called the Recovery and Renewal Secretariat. And one of their primary functions was to look at all of the authorizations, permits, licenses that the Ministry of Natural Resources is responsible for. So there's 23 pieces of legislation under the MNR and like 270 different authorizations under those legislations. And the question was asked by the deputy minister, probably came from the minister or someone external. How many of those like application forms even or information can you get online?
Mm.
And the answer was 12%. So they formed a group, and our job was let's figure out how to modernize the permits and well the authorization processes for MNR. So I had a one job with that team essentially, and that was build the database. And so it took me just under 6 months. I was there and I built that database that now they're picking through modernizing different processes. From there, I had applied for a supervisor job, a management job, and I didn't get it. So this is where your failures sometimes pay off. But from that interview process, I got a call from a manager at the Southern Region office of MNR asking me if I would come and do issues management. So I said, well, I did it for the district. I think I have a better understanding of how MNR works, having been in the corporate side of it for 6 months. So I said, sure, I'll do that. And I did that for 10 months. I went to a regional office and I handled all the contentious files that come through Southern Region. So the district, things the districts were dealing with, things the assistant deputy minister in the deputy minister's office, we were the regional hub for all of those issues and outreach stuff. So I did that for 10 months. And then I felt like I was ready for a management job in MNR. I'd always played sort of a leadership role, even at NPCA, although I wasn't in a formal management role there. I always sort of played a leadership role on my team. And so I didn't have the formal skills, but I got them through moving around a little bit with MNR. And those opportunities only came up because of COVID, because of the remote situation we were in. Otherwise, in the past in MNR, I would have had to move to Peterborough or Toronto, or like the roles I was doing were not Niagara based, but because of COVID and the remote work opportunities, I was able to take the corporate job for 6 months, take the regional job for 10 months, and then a position, some supervisor positions open through a restructuring that was done at MNR. And I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, landed back in Guelph District, which is now Elmer Guelph Vineland District. It was all amalgamated in 2022. And then as I was in an acting role as a supervisor, the permanent role came vacant and I was here. And so now I'm permanently in that district supervisor role in the district. So I could happily stay here until retirement. I love my team. I love the culture we've built here. Nothing is more important to me than that, than having the right culture. So yeah, that's my M&R journey. Not
We are
linear.
now. That's how I always think of you, or how I talk to you, or talk about you to other people. Is she's the M&R lady? She knows how they work and all their projects and things for the area of Niagara. You're kind of my Niagara specialist at this point
Yeah.
for that kind of thing. So that's why I was excited to talk to you, because I was interested in learning about maybe one of your favorite projects that you've ever worked on in your career. Aside from Baden, it doesn't count.
Yeah, no. Yeah, so the first one's always special, right? Baden Powell Park. Oh boy. I think I've been asked recently, actually, what I'm most proud of. And that would have to be the natural areas inventory for Niagara. I coordinated that on behalf of the MPCA from 2006 till 2009. I think I failed to mention that. I came out of the field for 3 years to coordinate the natural areas inventory. That was a multi-agency, multi-year beast of a project. Natural areas had never been mapped in their entirety in Niagara before. And I will tell you, I'm really thankful we did it when we did, because I'm not sure there would be the will to do a project like that currently. And we have the baseline forever, right? We know what it looked like from 2006 to 2009, and important decisions still get made using that data. So I think that's a project I'm most proud of. And the team we had on that, best in the biz, in my opinion. We had Albert Garofalo leading our field crews. It was a really special team, and it was hard work. It was a bit of a political fight to get it done. Consensus-based stakeholder engagement process, like it was meaty all the way around, and I learned so much. I thought I knew a lot going into that project, but it was humbling at times. But honestly, it's the thing I'm most proud of. I loved working with private landowners, so there are a million that come to mind when I think about well, maybe not a million. I did hundreds of projects in those 17 years with landowners who were wonderful. And some of my favorites are the tough nuts to crack, like the ones that I had to really convince them to do the project. And now they're some of the most um, outspoken landowners for the benefits of restoration. Uh, so those are, I'm proud of those. Yeah. I just really, for me, the overall in my career, the most important thing is the team dynamic and the culture. And I've had that over my career, and I've been really, really fortunate. Mhm.
Yeah, those types of projects I find are the most impactful. Like if you can leave something lasting that other people can build upon, then those are the most rewarding long term because
Yeah.
then it'll be 20 years from now and we'll be like, oh, well, like, do we know what it looked like in the beginning of the 2000s? That would be really helpful before all of this changed. And be like, actually, yes, we do. And here's how we can build upon that and make that even better. And I think as technology continues to get better and better, then that'll only make that type of assessment easier and easier. Even when I did consulting, when we would look at aerial imagery, it's like from the 50s versus now. I'm like, well, now I can digitally edit that if I want to. Whereas the 50s, it's just a photograph and
Yeah.
it's logged how it's logged. And it was somebody outside of an airplane taking a picture at that time in black and white.
Yeah.
So you can either figure it out or not. And it's come such a long way in that time. So I think that's a
I
great.
remember having to sell the tech for that project. I was like, we can get down to 10 centimeter resolution. We can, I remember saying this over and over again. You can see which way the cow's head is turned in the photograph. And I probably said that 100 times in trying to convince people about the aerial imagery we were using. And then we were ground truthing it. We visited almost 600 properties in the field to ground truth what we were seeing in the aerial imagery for that natural areas inventory. So rewarding. And you know what? You just said that the early 2000s. I'm thinking, oh, it's 2006. It's going to be 20 years next year since we
I
started that
know
project.
it
And that
sneaks up
just
on you.
dawned on me right now.
It
And I
sneaks
feel
up on
old.
you. It really does.
Yeah, I really feel old right now. But yeah, we know what it looked like 20 years ago.
Experienced, not old.
Yeah, yeah, whatever. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that you have a good team where you are. I think that that makes or breaks your career is the
Mhm.
people that you work with. And I've been very fortunate to work with a lot of great people as well. And then now get to, have these chats with them and showcase what they do and how influential they are and their thoughts on things. Because everybody has a little bit of a different perspective depending on your background.
Mhm.
So something that I like to do near the end of these chats is ask if you have any advice based on your career path for others that are maybe looking at following your trajectory for their own career.
Mm. Um, network, network, network. That's super important. Get out there. Even if you don't land a job in the field initially, get out, volunteer, stay connected, network, network, network. So important. And I think one of the other things, and I've even had these conversations with, we have a pretty young team here. We've been doing a significant amount of hiring the last couple of years, and we have some really young people working here. And I tell them, don't sell yourself short. You're bringing something, even if it's not years of experience, you're bringing something to the team, and the hiring team saw something in you that they want on their team. And so you are a valuable member from day one, and you need to take up space. If you have an idea, you have a thought, that's what we hired you for. Like, I don't want you to sit there and not say it because you're worried about being the new person in the room. Like, speak up. Um, Take up your space, know your worth, don't sell yourself short. Um, you have value right from the beginning.
I think that's a great piece of advice. That's something that I learned later, just based on the type of career path that I chose. That was advice that I got later on, and that changed everything once I started framing my mindset like that. So I think that that's fantastic advice, and I would tack on getting hands-on experience as early as you can as well, because I didn't do co-op in university. I was discouraged against doing co-op by older students in my programs. And I think that that would have totally changed how everything went, which I am very happy with how it has gone so far. But that would be something that I think I would tack on to your advice as well, because I find that
Mhm.
a lot of people with just a university degree tend to struggle in getting positions just because of that experience component, which is why programs like Niagara are so great, because then you get that hands-on experience. But if you
Yeah,
don't,
get your hands dirty legitimately.
literally, yes, get out, even if it's volunteering, just
Yeah.
get out and learn how these things work. Like there was one when we were at Niagara, I think we were helping the Credit Valley Conservation, and they were doing a Christmas tree uh,
Mhm.
buffer, riparian buffer
Reactions. Yeah.
in one of the rivers. Yeah, and so we got to go out and help with that, and I was like, oh, I didn't even know that this was a thing, let alone how it worked and how much energy and time and coordination it takes, and that was really eye-opening. So that would
Yeah,
be
and
my
you see
on
a
to your
yeah, no, I love that. And you see a drawing, Christmas trees, a Christmas tree revetment attached to the bank. Nobody ever tells you in those drawings how you connect it to the bank. Like you don't know that until you're there in the field and they're showing you hand and shovel how to
Yeah,
do this. Yeah, I
yeah,
agree. Yeah.
yeah.
They're
Hand weaving under the trees and making it work because you're not using super glue against dirt.
yes. Yes. Yes.
um, so yeah, that I think that that's great advice, and I appreciate your perspective on that very much. We are about at time that I told you it would take. Is there anything else that you were interested in sharing before we go?
I do want to hear a little bit about what you're doing. And I know
Sure.
that's this interview was supposed to be me answering questions for you, but I'm always interested to hear what former students are up to. I can't tell you how many times I've bumped into former students at meetings and things and thought, I didn't know you were doing this. So I'm
Yes.
always amazed. Yeah. And overjoyed for how we're, you know, spreading the net wide.
Yeah, yeah. Ian was just telling me how one of his former students he has now hired
Yes.
to help him with projects, and I love that. I think that it's great to keep in touch and see where you can help with others. I find the most joy in educating. That's my favorite thing in the world to do, and I've been doing this for a few years. At that point, more of a side thing, and I really just wanted it to be my main career. So this year, I had quit consulting and I took this up full time. And so I teach in classrooms from grades K to 12. I also do external workshops and things. So Museum London hired me to do a Canada Day nature walk in which I talked about the river and all of the species around and the history of the place and everything like that. And then I do things like this, like the career chats, create content that's accessible on the internet. I think that's the thing that I enjoy doing the most is taking something maybe from a research paper that nobody would have ever heard of what that was before, and then making it accessible and understandable
Yeah.
to a majority of people. Because I think that's a huge barrier to people understanding how this all works and being interested is they hear these big words like fluvial geomorphology and they're like, oh, what is that?
Yeah.
So I say, oh, river scientists. And they're like, oh, okay. That's a lot easier for me to understand. So that's kind of the main focus of what I do is taking environmental content from all over the place. So ecology, river science, coastal science, education, everything, and then putting it all in one hub for everybody in an easy, digestible way. That's
Yeah.
also kind of fun and pretty.
Where are you living?
I live in Brantford currently. I was living in London for a while, but now I live in Brantford, but my hub is in London. So right now, actually, I'm running a fundraiser on Kickstarter. I created a custom deck of cards that has information for all of the environmentally significant areas and conservation areas in London on them. And then on the back is artwork from a local London artist of Sifton Bog, which is one of the ESAs in London. And so then the proceeds for that will go to support students in the TVDSB at no cost to them, like for me to go out and teach them.
Cool. Very
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Exciting. I love hearing what folks are doing and students are doing a broad like a very broad range, um, all different paths in this field, and I love it. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, because even the people that were in my year were from all sorts of backgrounds of education, because there wasn't a requirement for you to just be from an ecology background or just from a
Right.
water background or whatever. And we had people all over the place. So I keep in touch with a couple. I'm still in the groups, like the Facebook group, so I get to see them every so often, like, oh, my company is hiring for this, or the Ontario government is hiring for this position. I'm like, how did you get there? And then I creep their LinkedIn, figure out what they've been up to, and I think it's really cool. Well then, thank you so
Great.
much
It's
for
been
your
my
time today. I
pleasure.
really appreciate chatting with you and catching up, and I wish you the
Yeah, me
best
too.
rest of your day.
Thanks. You too. Nice
Thank
chatting
you.
with you.
Take care. Bye-bye.